Dear journalists, dear guests, welcome to the press conference. We are very delighted to welcome the Prime Minister of the Hellenic Republic in Tallinn, the Prime Minister Kaja Kallas and the Prime Minister Kyriakos Mitsotakis will deliver short remarks, and after that it is possible to ask media questions. The press conference is held in English with simultaneous translation into Estonian. First, Prime Minister Kaja Kallas, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Dear Kyriakos, it's my great pleasure to welcome you here in Tallinn. There is a lot that connects us. We are both sea nations, as we were watching the maps. We are both island nations. We are both EU border nations, which also gives us common problems. We share the same values. We are allies in NATO and partners in the EU. And this year we are also celebrating 100 years of our diplomatic relations between our two countries. I'm glad that our bilateral relations are deepening and we are finding new ways to cooperate. Digital cooperation is something that we can do more. Their memorandum of understanding, Estonia and Greece signed last year, offers a good basis to move ahead. This is what we'll be discussing during our meeting today. We are both also countries situated by the sea, and maritime cooperation is an area of big potential, especially when it comes to the green transition. We have industry here that has a lot to offer when it comes to making ports and ships more environmentally friendly. During difficult times like now, we need full cooperation between good partners and allies. It is also important in the current European security context not to create additional pressures and de-escalate tensions in the Eastern Mediterranean region, especially among allies. I look forward to having a longer discussion on this matter during lunch. Your visit to the region sends an important message, especially as our eastern neighbor continues its genocidal war against Ukraine. I would also like to thank Greece and you personally, as you have been leader and your leadership been supporting in Ukraine and for understanding the threat that Russia poses for the whole free world. Ukraine needs to win this war. Russia's aims have not changed. At the same time, Russia is trying to use all the means possible to have a pause so that they could regroup and continue later, and to ultimately get something that wasn't theirs to begin with. That is why the way to peace is helping Ukraine to push Russia out. Russia is counting on us getting tired or scared, but the price of doing that would be too high, because if the aggression pays off somewhere, it serves as an invitation to use it elsewhere. We are in this state elders room, and the pictures you see on the walls are picturing our state elders, the people who were participating in our independence and building our country. If you look at their dates of death, they all died when the occupation started. So even if you have peace, but there is occupation, it doesn't mean that the human suffering for those people will stop. Instead of fighting soldiers on the battlefield, Russian missiles target ordinary citizens. This is terrorist tactics. Yesterday's attacks on Kiev and on Ukrainian critical infrastructure is yet another example of it. Hundreds of thousands of households left without electricity, many without water. This shows that Ukraine's urgent needs include air defense. We must ramp up and continue our support as long as it takes. This means military, economic, humanitarian, and political support. And we must focus on accountability. Many ask, how come Russia has reached this point of pure barbarism, possibly genocide? And my answer is very clear, because there have been tribunals of Tokyo and Nuremberg, but there was no tribunal of Moscow for crimes of aggression and crimes of communist regime. Russia has drawn all the wrong conclusions from this. We cannot forget Russia is waging a hybrid war against us all. We are continuing efforts to support our citizens in the face of the energy war. At the same time, the risk of hybrid attacks via instrumentalization of migrants remains very high. Estonia has welcomed many Ukrainian refugees. If you consider percentage of temporary protection receivers, that is 2.9% of our population. Greece, as an EU external border country, knows very well the challenges that such inflow poses. Our solidarity is crystal clear. Estonia has helped to secure Greek sea border via Frontex for years and is one of the biggest contributors to these efforts per capita. We also need to think about our own defense. The main task ahead is to strengthen NATO's posture in our region and implement decisions from the Madrid summit. I would also like to thank Greece for your continued support. Our strength lies in our unity. So thank you once again.
Thank you. Prime Minister Mitsotakis, please.
Well, Kaja, thank you very much for this very warm welcome. It's a real pleasure to be able to visit Estonia and Tallinn. It's a trip we've been planning for quite some time, and I think indeed it is appropriate to come this year because, as you pointed out, we are marking the centennial of our diplomatic relations. We have excellent prospects to develop and give a new impetus to our already very good bilateral relations. You're right to point out that we have lots of things in common. We sit on the external border of our union. We're maritime states. We both face challenges from larger neighbors to our east, and of course we share the same values, the same beliefs in a rules-based international order. As you pointed out, there's lots we can do to cooperate in fields such as digital transformation. I must tell you that I was inspired by the Estonian model when we designed our own Ministry of Digital Governance, and we have been, very successful in dramatically changing the way Greek citizens and businesses interact with the state, with over 1 billion digital transactions taking place over the last year, and a lot of progress made in numerous digital applications, for example, digital prescriptions and applications around healthcare. You are leaders when it comes to e-government, and we're looking to further deepen that collaboration to the benefit of both our countries. And of course, to also focus on areas of cooperation when it comes to high tech. We have a booming high tech ecosystem in Greece, and I know you've done tremendous things here in Estonia. So I would also like to send a message here from Tallinn that if your companies are looking to expand in Southeastern Europe, Greece is really the place to be and to do business. Yesterday, The Economist published a survey which put Greece at the top of the countries that have improved their business environment. We gained 16 places in 3 years, so this makes us, very happy and makes our story in terms of projecting Greece as a country that has left the crisis years behind us as that much more compelling. But of course, we wish we would only be discussing issues such as digital transformation, but there's a war on our continent, and this will take up a significant amount of our discussions. Greece and Estonia stand united against this blatant act of aggression by Russia, along with the rest of our EU partners and our NATO allies. We are, particularly committed to a rules-based international order. We cannot conceive of the fact that anyone in our continent would like to change our borders by force. Hence, we have committed ourselves to continue to provide Ukraine with all the necessary support, and this also includes military support in order for the brave Ukrainians to defend themselves as effectively as possible. And let me also join my voice to what the Prime Minister said in terms of condemning the indiscriminate attacks that took place as recently as yesterday against Ukrainian infrastructure, causing not just the death of innocent civilians, but also the destruction of infrastructure that is absolutely critical in order for Ukraine to maintain its electricity supply and to keep warm during the winter. I would also like to focus on the topic of making sure that we join our forces in terms of convincing those countries that do not implement sanctions against Russia that that is not the right approach, especially when it comes to NATO members. Sanctions are effective, and they are that much more effective if we eliminate loopholes that allow Russia to circumvent them. I had an opportunity to brief Kaja on the situation in the Eastern Mediterranean and the continuous tensions provoked by Turkey in the Aegean through actions and rhetoric that unfortunately undermine the regional stability and security of the whole region. I would like to thank Estonia because they have always supported our positions at the level of the European Council. I will keep reiterating that there is only one way to resolve disputes. There's only one playbook we can use, and that is international law, and in our case, the United Nations conventions on the laws of the seas, because our difference with Turkey is related to the delimitation of maritime zones. We have demonstrated in Greece that we can resolve these issues. We've signed a delimitation agreement with Egypt. Two countries which are essentially at war in the region, Israel and Lebanon, succeeded in signing a delimitation agreement. So there's no reason why we could not do the same thing with Turkey. But in order for this to happen, provocations, unnecessary provocations, offensive rhetoric against Greece, openly questioning the sovereignty of our islands, these are completely unacceptable actions which need to stop immediately. We also have a common interest in terms of cooperating when it comes to migration, because we sit on the external borders of the European Union, and I think we always need to condemn states that openly weaponize migrants in order to gain geopolitical leverage. And of course, last but not least, we are cooperating very closely with Estonia in terms of addressing issues such as the cost of living and in particular the high cost of energy. All our governments are struggling with this problem, and we understand the pain that is incurred upon our citizens. There are never easy solutions to these complex problems, and I think in all of our countries we face populist oppositions that promise the moon to voters without understanding that if the solutions were so easy, they would have already been implemented. Having said that, Greece, and the same is also happening in Estonia, is systematically supporting businesses and households in order to reduce the impact of the high cost of energy. But we need a European solution. We've discussed this at the level of the Council. Now is the time for our ministers to agree in order to impose a limit to the wide fluctuations in the prices of gas that will allow us to have more predictability in terms of our long-term energy policies. And of course, speaking of long-term energy policies, Greece is a leader when it comes to renewable energy. We'll be at COP27 in a few days discussing how the penetration of renewables is so important, not only to fight climate change, but also for geopolitical reasons. If we want to break our dependence on imported fossil fuels, we need, in the short term, to make sure that we get gas from other sources. Greece is a leader in terms of building LNG infrastructure to supply not just our country, but the whole region. And of course, also to immediately push forward with a much more rapid penetration of renewables that will allow us to leverage sources of energy that no one can ever take away from us. So let me stop here. Let me thank you again, Kaja, for the very warm welcome, and let me express my satisfaction about the excellent level of cooperation between our two governments.
Thank you. Now it's possible for media to ask questions. Please do state your name, the media outlet you're representing, and to whom the question is addressed to. And please use microphone.
Hello. My name is Tarmo Maiberg. I'm from Estonian Public Broadcasting. Question to you, Mr. Prime Minister. Is it morally acceptable for you that Greece is allowing Russian citizens to Greece as tourists while Russia is fighting the war in Ukraine? And as I understand, Greece has not supported Ukraine army, let's say on a level like Germany or France. And also, do you support creation of international tribunal for crimes of aggression?
Yeah, let me take your questions in the order that they were asked. We have not been, in principle, supporting a blanket ban for Russians visiting the European Union, but we have really suffered as Greece and as a tourist destination from the fact that we sided with the European Union on all the sanctions packages because practically nobody from Russia came to Greece this summer, whereas almost all the Russians that wanted to travel went to Turkey. So we paid the price in terms of sticking with the sanctions package, and I'm convinced we did the right thing. We have provided a lot of military support to Ukraine. I will not go, for obvious reasons, into detail, but the Ukrainians are very satisfied with the assistance that we have offered them, and there have been no complaints in terms of us stepping up to the plate and delivering. The last question regarding the alleged very possible war crimes being committed, we're open to all options in order to hold Russia accountable, those who perpetrated these war crimes accountable. So we do not exclude any option, but we have not yet have a firm opinion on which is the right approach to address this issue.
Yeah. If I may add, although it was not a question to me, but I would commend Greece's or Prime Minister Mitsotakis' leadership on this, considering Greece's policy regarding Russia. I think it has been a great political leadership, so that Greece is on board of the sanctions and is actually on the right side of history, if I may put so, so that Greece is equal ally, although the problems may be further away from your borders as they are closer to ours. But keeping the unity, I think it's very important, and Greece has been a strong player in this.
Yeah, and let me just add one more point. We have more than 100,000 Ukrainians of Greek origin living around Mariupol. So we deeply care about what happened, at least to that part of Ukraine. So we took our decisions very, very, very quickly, in spite of the fact that Greece has, traditional friendly relations with the Russian people. I make a distinction between, the people and the government. We will stick to this path, and we will always be supportive of European actions to put maximum pressure on Russia to stop this war as quickly as possible.
Thank you. Next question, please.
My name is Nikos Sarmenis from Athens News Agency. I would like to ask both Prime Ministers about the energy crisis. Mrs. Kallas, as you know, from the beginning of the crisis, Greece has proposed measures to curb the excessive gas prices and also a gas price cap, a dynamic price corridor, in order to limit gas prices for consumers. Are you in favor of a European solution to address the price aspect? What measures do you think would lead to a drop in energy prices? And Mr. Mitsotakis, if the energy ministers agree, when will we see drop in electricity prices? Thank you.
Yes, thank you for your question. It is true that energy crisis is something that we all suffer from, and we have to understand that it also stems from the war that is going on. And Russia's actions in weaponizing the energy towards European countries. I think in the last European Council we actually came to very good decisions. Three important points. One is that we go to joint procurement regarding, so that we don't outbid each other. The second is the price corridor that gave a very strong signal to the gas market as the price has come down and is around 100 right now, and also the way forward, so that there would be a new gas index that would take into account the LNG price. We have a common goal to get the energy prices down, and I think we have been quite effective here, and we have to keep this line as well, because the worry is not going to be solved by this winter. We have to survive this winter, but we also have to survive the next winter, and to have long-term solutions for energy. So we are working hard, and the unity is a key here. Thanks.
No, I'm satisfied that we managed at the last European Council to agree to task our ministers to come up with decisions rather than to just plan. Prime Minister is right to mention that this is a comprehensive package. The dynamic price corridor, or the cap on spikes, is one element of what has to be agreed. But I do need to point out that the markets took notice of the fact that we're serious about bringing down the prices, and I believe that one of the reasons why the prices of gas have dropped significantly is also because they know that we're ready to act. So now is the time to act. No one can make predictions about the price of gas in the short to medium term, but I must say that we have been successful in terms of limiting our consumption of gas to the extent that this is actually possible. We all our countries engage in energy efficiency measures, try to save gas, and of course, as far as Greece is concerned, we have put in place. We were the first European country to put in place a scheme through which we capture the windfall profits of the energy producers and then recycle them back to the electricity consumers. So we have kept prices of electricity for households reasonable. I'm saying we have avoided the very excessive sort of spikes in the price of electricity that would have happened without our subsidy, and everybody who's receiving an electricity bill in Greece now can actually see what they pay, and they can see what the subsidy is and what they would have paid without the government intervention. But I do need to point out that this scheme is also obviously supported through the state budget, and that there are limits for all European countries to how much they can spend to support our citizens, and that is why the European solution, the European support is so important.
Thank you. Next question, please.
Kalispera. Marilis Roosut from Delphi, and I have a question for the Greek Prime Minister. Could you please comment on the reports that Greek oil tankers continue to transport Russian oil, and even more so that during the war the numbers have been record high compared to the average figures? Thank you.
Yeah. First of all, we need to clarify that the Greek shipping industry is fully compliant with the decisions taken by the European Union when it comes to sanctions. As you know, we'll not be able to transport any Russian oil into the European Union starting December 1st, and no products starting February 1st. There has not been a ban on the transport of Russian oil to other destinations. If a ban were to be placed, then of course the Greek shipping industry would comply, and then it's up to the individual shipping sort of operators to decide whether they want to engage in these types of trades, taking into consideration the risks and the insurance premiums, of course, that are related to this approach. I need to point out that shipping is a global industry. I'm going to be the first to support any European decision regarding shipping that is actually going to be effective. What we should not do is to shoot European shipping, which is so crucial for the security of supply sort of globally, into the foot in order for other countries that are outside the European Union to benefit and to essentially pick up the business that we would be abandoning. So we need to be very careful, and I think we've been successful in doing that, to modulate our sanctions, to make sure that we impose pain on Russia. We also incur pain. It's very clear, but we need to keep this balance right.
Thank you. And we have time for a final short question, please.
Please. A question for the Prime Minister of Estonia and from Prime Minister Mitsotakis. Mrs. Kallas, Estonia has become a digital society. You are the champions of Europe regarding this sector. Last year, Greece and Estonia signed a memorandum of cooperation. The pandemic became for us an opportunity to involve digitally. So, is there a further prospect of cooperation between Greece and Estonia? And to conclude, what steps can we take in order to face challenges as hybrid threats and cybersecurity?
Mm-hmm. Yes, thank you. I think we have very many cooperation points, and what we could do more together. We have developed a very thorough e-governance system that goes to different sectors. One easy thing that we could do together that we have is the e-prescription, so that you go, you don't have to have a paper prescription when you go to the pharmacy to get your medicines, because it is e-prescription and you go anywhere in Estonia to get your medicine. You don't have to. You can do this for your grandparents, for example, and this already works together with Finland. It is very easy, and it is actually really people use it very well. The other area of cooperation that we could have is the e-justice system to move some of the parts of the justice procedures online or digital. That has saved a lot of time for our judges to actually do the little or the more simpler things without convening in a traditional way, and also giving documents, all these things, saving paper, by the way, which is environmentally friendly as well, that we don't use paper so much. So these are, for example, two of the cooperation areas that I could point out in the digital sphere. What comes to cybersecurity, then in 2007 we were very widely attacked by Russia by cyber attacks, and therefore we learned a lot from there. We invested to cybersecurity, and we do invest every year to cybersecurity and to the foundations of the systems. Why this is important? Because, some years ago, hospitals only had to, their only security risk was that some drug addict comes and steals morphine. But now actually hospitals have become a security risk because everything is connected, and by disconnecting or cyber attacking such infrastructure that may cause also civilian casualties. So therefore, we really have to think about those things. We see currently, of course, more and more cyber attacks against us as well, but having been investing so much to this area, then hugely they have not been successful. And that also is because we have a system. I hope you all have the possibility to go to our e-governance center, where they show how our system works, so that it is basically a system of very many small dots. So if you attack one dot, it doesn't mean that the whole system will collapse. And this one dot maybe will be out of work for out of service for 2 hours, but then it's up again, and it doesn't hinder the whole system. So the systems investing to cybersecurity, making them more resilient, I think it's also a message to everybody currently, because of the hybrid war, the cyber war, the information war that is going on alongside the conventional war that we are seeing happening in Ukraine. Thank you.
Let me quickly add that e-government solutions can be truly transformative. When we launched our digital prescription service, it was a true revelation. We have filed 42 million digital prescriptions so far. It is only one example how technology can make our lives so much simpler, but also at the same time promoting transparency, which is a very important priority for us. We're looking to cooperate with Estonia on various fields. Justice is an area where we can still move much faster in terms of digitizing our processes, but I would like to highlight the potential for cooperation when it comes to cybersecurity and cyber threats. There, I think there are very, very clear synergies, a lot of expertise in Estonia that we can leverage, because these attacks are now becoming mainstream by state, but also by non-state actors, and we need to be vigilant and we need to be protected. Finally, the struggle against disinformation is going to be part of the reality of the democratic debate for all our societies, especially for those countries that have upcoming elections in the next year. We need to be aware of the fact that there will be actors that will try to sort of influence our electoral processes below the radar, and using methods that we need to be able to anticipate, highlight, and that is why we are also very, very supportive to sort of European agendas that will promote transparency in the public sphere, and make sure that everybody participates in the public debate, but is also held accountable in terms of what they say, so that we know who is saying what, and everybody can be judged for the merit of their opinions, rather than from the sort of the dark origins of these ideas. So this is another area where we can cooperate and where we can do much more together.
Thank you. This concludes the press conference. Thank you for coming and following online. Have a good day.
Mhm.